can good design shape a better world? At Monocle's Quality of Life conference in Barcelona this September, we'll be putting that question to the people who already are. Join leading designers, architects, and creative leaders as we explore how design intersects with culture, business, and everyday life. Plus, great food, excellent company, and plenty of Catalan charm. Find out more and book your seat at monocle.com/conference.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Manise. On today's program, we hear from the director of the London Design Biennale and visit the inaugural edition of the Finished Glass Biennale. Plus, we head to Shanghai for an Art Deco architectural tour. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Hello and welcome to today's program, which is recorded in London, where the London Design Biennale is now open to the public. It's on show at Somerset House across the month of June. The 3-week exhibition features curated installations and a range of events, talks, performances and workshops. Ahead of its opening, its director, Victoria Broackes, as well as experiential designer and author Rachel Botsman, joined this show's producer, Maylee Evans, at our studio. Victoria began by sharing how this year's participants have interpreted artistic director Samuel Ross's theme, Surface Reflections.
I love this as a theme. It's very broad. It's able to be open to many different types of interpretation. The theme works very well for the public because they have something in their minds that can kind of help them navigate through this very broad range of content. Samuel talks about it in terms of your heritage, your experiences, your interactions and so on, showing through in terms of what you produce and who you are. But we're seeing all kinds of different interpretations, including kind of sonic and very visual, things with mirrors. We are really excited about the content and the vision and aims of London Design Biennale. It was set up originally to facilitate exchange and collaboration, and it is the only design-focused biennale in a capital city still, although there are many different kinds around the world, where we've added to the original aim of exchange and collaboration, which is something wonderful to see, of course, particularly as we live in such a troubled world. There's something thrilling about the countries who are all arriving now to put their pavilions on show for us. And there's so much collaboration between the teams who create things, but then also the interactions and events and so on that happen during the run. We're looking at design not just in terms of narratives and big stories, which a lot of the country pavilions focus on, but also design as a problem-solving tool, as something that's often part of interdisciplinary teams, that is really directly addressing the world as it is and how to make the world a better place. And there's so much involved in that. And I think it's that aspect that means it's not just interesting to a sort of niche design group. It really is something that every member of the public can be involved with, have an opinion on, and come and see the Biennale and have your ideas sort of provoked, get a point of view, form an opinion, and so on, and tell us about it.
So, Victoria, maybe we discuss some of the highlights. We won't call them favourites, but some highlights from this year that you're excited to
No, absolutely. And we can't have favourites yet, at least. The number of countries participating is a mixture between individual pavilions, Malta or Hong Kong or Poland or Japan or Qatar. Nearly all continents of the world are represented. But also there are some collaborative projects which are really interesting. World Monuments Fund and English Heritage, for example, are presenting a project around coastal erosion that's happening in 7 different countries at 7 different sites, and they're sharing ideas. So again, this idea of design as solving problems, and the fact that if we work together, which we need to do, of course, now more than ever, is a good thing. And that's something we really hope to facilitate and encourage.
This feels like the perfect place to bring you in, Rachel. So you were presenting this year Roots of Trust, and this is centred around a reimagining of a historical object. So maybe we start off with what that item is.
Yeah, it's a beautiful object. It's not going to sound like that when I say what it is, because it's an organisational chart from 1855. And when you say the words organisational chart, most people think of a pyramid. They think of boxes. They think of linear lines. That's how we think of organisations today. But the first one was created for the railroads in New York. And it was a challenge because it was a time, in many ways, that mirrors today, like a lot of complexity and scale. The telegraph had just been invented. And this superintendent called Daniel McCallum, he suddenly faced a challenge where he had 4,700 employees, which was new because they were used to running like mom and pop stores where they could see everyone. So his challenge was, how do you manage a distributed workforce? And I love how that parallels today. You know, how do you manage people who may not be physically in the office? And so he sat down with a draftsman called George Henshaw, and he mapped every single row and how they were all connected. It is not like a pyramid, it is a tree. And the thing that really struck me when I first saw it was that the board and the directors, they are the roots. So it's an inversion of power, and then it branches out to the frontline workers. And this thing has sat in archives for over 170 years, and from what I've known, has never been publicly shown. It was very small originally, 35 by 40 inches on paper. It was very damaged when I found it. And it's been a 2-year project of restoration, so actually figuring out what is there and all the different names and the titles and the icons. And then I wanted to really bring it to life to mirror the theme of surface reflections. The actual installation, they'll walk into a dark room. It's at the end of the embankment gallery, is very cathedral-like, and it's engraved on acrylic, which took 48 hours for the machine to engrave the entire pattern. He literally did map out every single dot. So the president and the board are the roots, and then each division is these beautiful branches, and then every single row is mapped by a leaf. And the size of the leaf corresponds to their level of responsibility and authority. So you walk in and then the room is dark and light shines through it. And some people just stare at the engraving and other people are very absorbed by the reflections on the floor. And I felt like I wanted it to be fluid and moving because the way we represent relationships as lines and boxes, that's not human nature, right? Human nature is fluid and moving and quite messy. So, and the interesting thing is I've seen when we've tested it, everyone goes quiet when they see this thing. And that's why I've put benches in there, because I don't know quite what it's prompting in people, that it has this quite ethereal quality, which you wouldn't think of when you say you're going to look at an org chart and feel quite still and quite moved by this thing. But that's what it seems to be prompting in people.
It not only is a beautiful piece that is representing what the railroad company needed to represent, but it also completely, as Rachel says, it changes your thinking. And I was sort of reflecting, and we were just discussing it actually, that who asked for that? Did the chairman of the company say, by the way, we're the roots? Or did the designer come back and say, you know what, we should be doing it here, we should be nurturing your workforce, and this is what this represents. And I think that is already... It shows very visibly and visually how design is sort of philosophical in terms of how it can present thinking and how it can address things that we're all trying to do in different ways that are really helpful. In terms of the wider programming and other exhibits, we have in that vein the UK Civil Service presenting a workshop on serious gaming to save the planet. And that's illustrating how design can be used in policy making. And it is also about bringing the public into that policy making. So they will actually test hypotheses and theses and so on with the public on site interactively. And that's just one of literally hundreds of things that are going on site. Any day that you come down, look out for what is happening that day. We have talks, panels, workshops. We have a partnership with youth-focused workshop, Upgrade Yourself, in the middle of June, and that's looking to widening participation backgrounds, getting involved in creative pursuits. We have all kinds of things that allow the pavilions not just to be static, but to actually come out and talk about the processes and what is involved in that. Every single pavilion, I'd say, is a sort of mixture of, it's not one thing, it's many things and it's many ideas. So lots to get involved in.
And Rachel, I suppose I wonder about your participation in the Biennale. How has this pushed your practice or challenged you? What are you taking from this experience that you'll bring forward in your work?
So much of my work is about making invisible things visible, about taking quite complex forces that are shaping our lives and bringing clarity to them. And I think that's what design does. This is just in a different medium. And that's what it's really pushed me to do, is to say these things that shape our lives, power, authority, hierarchy, so relevant right now. All these systems that aren't working. How could I design an installation that, I promise you, even if you have no interest in railroads or organizations or systems, how could it prompt a conversation around the design of systems, how we organize people, how we think about work and the future? And that's been the special thing, that as people have started to see this, I've had people come out and say, this has made me think about AI and job titles, because our job titles are just like on this chart from 170 years ago. They're not relevant now. I've had people studying information design come out and go, maybe we're going to be needed in new ways as these forces become more complex in our lives. That's the beauty of being part of the Biennale, is the different people that it brings together and how it prompts all these discussions and conversations, because people have something they can see and hold and experience, which would never happen if you wrote a paper. I teach at Oxford. It would never happen if you gave a lecture, right? Like, you just wouldn't get that kind of visceral response from all these different groups from around the world. It's been wonderful watching the pavilions take shape, and I'm really intrigued. This year there seems to be like two themes that are bubbling up. One is how many people are using the past as a prompt to reimagine the future. Like, there's a lot of people using artifacts and history and the use of craftsmanship. You know, like these old crafts across textiles and stone. And it's kind of like an antidote to digital thinking. So I feel like I go to a lot of exhibitions now and it's so stimulating. Like, there's lots of video and motion. This is like beautiful, right? The amount of craftsmanship. It's a very different experience to things that I'm seeing in other museums where they seem to be getting like more tech, more sophisticated, a lot of AI, which is great. But going back to these really handmade things, there's something really powerful in that.
Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Well, I think that is absolutely true, because, of course, in different parts of the world, craft traditions are still very, very strong. But you're absolutely right. Something that we've seen more of in, I think, the last two Biennales than we'd seen previously, over 5. And I think there's very much this idea, certainly in terms of craft, that the sort of mindfulness, things that make us feel good, which isn't just the actual doing it, the performing of the craft, but actually looking at it or touching it and feeling it. And that's another thing. It's less like a museum show in as much as often there are things at the Biennale that you can touch. It's really very present. It's contemporary. It's what's happening right now. You can get involved with that right now. In terms of heritage affecting the future, I think that is a really good point. And I think it's something that possibly is established as a way of thinking about the future. But I think there's a real sort of emphasis now on how do we make sense of the present, and looking to the past can be really helpful to do that as well.
Victoria Broackes and Rachel Botsman there. They were in conversation with Maylie Evans. The London Design Biennale is on at Somerset House in the UK capital until the 29th of June 2025. We head to southern Finland now for another industry event, but this time one that's focused around a singular material. The Finnish Glass Biennale wrapped up last week, and the show was more than just an exhibition. It was a journey through the country's glassmaking heritage. It examined everything from the historic furnaces in the town of Riihimäki, the creative studios of Nuotajärvi, and heritage brand Iittala. Monocle's Helsinki correspondent Petri Bertsoff visited the event and spoke to the organisers, artists and curators to find out why Finnish glass continues to catch the world's attention.
The inaugural edition of the Finnish Glass Biennale was hosted at the former Riihimäki glass factory, once the largest of its kind in the Nordic countries, and one that launched the careers of iconic Finnish glass designers such as Helena Thunell, Timo Sarpaneva, Gunnel Nyman and Nanny Still. History was very much present at the 4-day event, with the aforementioned artists' works on display in addition to ones from celebrated designers such as Alvaro Naino-Aalto, Tapio Virkkala and Kai Frank. That said, one of the goals of the event, organized by the team behind the Helsinki Design Week, was to shed light on contemporary Finnish glass design. I spoke to program director Anni Korkman, one of the event's organizers, to find out more.
One of the insights that we've been relying on has been that Finnish glass is truly living its new renaissance, so to say. There's definitely a momentum for this craftsmanship and skills and innovation, design, everything that glass stands for today. So what we're trying to achieve is to bring the whole industry of glass together. Somehow we want to get to know the glass community, and we want to invite and involve everyone. And we also want to tell about the Finnish glass heritage and the narrative. We're quite well known for design, but there are so many glass masters in the past that should get the recognition that they maybe haven't yet had. But most importantly, we want to talk about the future of glass, and we want to talk about the future of Finnish glass and Finnish innovation around it.
What can visitors to the Finnish Glass Biennale, what can they expect to experience? Can you walk us through the program?
Well, we invite all audiences to experience the unexpected, and this has been something that we've been really focusing on, as the whole process of blowing glass can be so unexpected, and it always has those it's very soft and it's very hard and it's very fragile, yet it's forever. It's very hot in the beginning and then suddenly it's cold. So we want to explore the boundaries of glass and design. There are several international visitors that we're very happy about, and everyone are encouraged to discover all these innovations in glass technology as well. There was a seminar today presenting the versatility of glass as a material, and there are several other expert-led tours, created exhibitions, lots of live demonstrations, which sounds like quite magical to me almost. And then the funny one, the glass-blowing world championship taking place in Iittala.
To get a better understanding of the role that glass played in shaping Finland's reputation in the world of craft and design, I spoke to Hanna Mamiavalter, the director of the Finnish Glass Museum, also based in Riihimäki.
I think the glass artists were the first ones to be world famous. After that came the contemporary artists and other designers, but glass artists were the first ones to somehow break up the ice.
Is there something, can we talk about sort of a Finnish aesthetic of glass making? What sets Finnish makers apart from, let's say, the masters of Murano or Czech glass or other famous places?
Yes, absolutely. I think Finnish glass is famous from a minimalistic view and some references to nature, for example, and certain kind of colors. Finnish people have a very, very strong relationship with glass, and this event is for everybody. This is not only for collectors or professionals, but this is for everybody. So I think this is very important in that sense.
Next, I caught up with one of the younger glass artists, whose work was among the hundreds of glass pieces on display at the Finnish Glass Biennale.
My name is Paula Päkkönen and I'm an artist and a glassblower, so I make my own art and I also occasionally blow glass for other artists and designers.
And you work internationally as well, not only in Finland, is that correct?
Yes, I've had some projects internationally, for example in Japan, and the latest project was with United Colors of Benetton in Milan on the Milan Design Week. I had an exhibition in their shop windows. It's good to be grateful that we have actually a really good foundation in glass design and glass art. I don't feel it as a burden to carry the torch. I'm happy to be carrying the torch and hopefully leading the new wave of Finnish glass art into something exciting.
What inspires you most about working with glass? What makes it such a compelling medium to you?
Well, I think the material itself, anyone who gets to see it or touch it or work with it kind of falls head over heels in love with the material, because it's just so magical how something so malleable can be suddenly then super fragile, and the heat, how it glows, glass glows orange whenever, like even if it's red colored glass, it glows orange when it's so hot. In the like finished pieces, I love how glass repeats colors and how it reflects light. So I play a lot with colors in my own work.
Can you maybe describe a little bit your style and your objects that you make?
Yeah, so I have been working with this series of glass ice creams. So they're colorful ice creams that there has been maybe a bite taken out of, or it might have some kind of stripes. Or the newest edition is that it has dropped on the floor and it's melting on the floor. So it's very colorful and playful and humorous.
The Finnish Glass Biennale, organized in historic glassblowing towns of Riihimäki, Nuutajärvi and Iittala, offered a rare opportunity to experience the evolution of glass from industrial icon to contemporary art form. And for a country with such a gloried history in glassmaking, it was refreshing to see how Finland's new generation of glassmakers push the medium forward. For Monocle Radio in Riihimäki, Finland, I'm Petri Burtsov.
The style of Art Deco is celebrating its official centenary this year. The movement, which is characterised by streamlined geometric forms and bold colours and materials, is prominent in many cities across the world. This includes Shanghai, which is home to many buildings in the style that have continued to survive the wrecking ball. And it's there that we join the writer, Thomas Pinheiro, for a tour of the city's deco treasures.
Before glass skyscrapers took over in the 2000s, Shanghai saw another real estate boom, the Art Deco surge of the 20s and 30s, where some of Asia's finest examples of the style were built. Patrick Cranley is one of the founders of Shanghai Art Deco, a group that celebrates this style in the city through guided tours and events. They even hosted the World Congress on Art Deco in 2015. Patrick guided me through some of the city's deco gems. Our first stop is the former French club, now the Okura Garden Hotel. The exterior is neoclassical, but inside, the first hints of the modernist style begin to show.
So welcome to the former French club, the Cercle Sportif Français. So a private club that had a reputation of being actually one of the more liberal clubs as well. There were many national clubs in town that were quite exclusive. This one had a reputation of being more open. And it is where we say in Shanghai, Art Deco arrived.
Patrick tells me Art Deco unfolded in periods. The French club is in its earlier phase, a transitional style where clean geometric simplification appears in elements like column capitals, friezes, and brass railings. But when we step into the ballroom, we see something far more defined, a striking multicolored stained glass skylight in abstract geometry.
Original and installed in 1926, designed and made in Paris and shipped over to Shanghai. So it was the latest thing. And I'm going to try to turn on some of the lights. The security guys will probably come and kick us out in a minute. By the way, the original sprung wooden dance floor is underneath of this contemporary rug. So if you jump up and down, you can feel the floor move.
We can say Shanghai had its own roaring 20s, and the city's cosmopolitan and hedonistic elite often gathered in this very ballroom beneath its remarkable glass skylight. Back then, the city was divided into separate concessions, controlled by foreign powers. The most famous were the British, American, and French. Architects from around the world arrived to work on new projects, but there were also Chinese architects trained in the West and eager to bring modernist ideals back home.
Shanghai's culture has always been about being the most modern, being the fastest, being the latest trend. And that's why I think Art Deco was adopted here in Shanghai with such enthusiasm. And by the way, adopted mostly by the Chinese population in Shanghai. A lot of the Westerners wanted to recreate back home. So the British built half-timbered neo-Tudor style houses. The Germans used the heavy stone of their classic architecture. The Italians wanted Italianate. The Americans wanted American. But the Shanghai Chinese wanted whatever was the latest.
One character in particular is known for his impact on Shanghai, Sir Victor Sassoon, a British tycoon born into Baghdad aristocracy with businesses across Asia. He developed several Art Deco gems in the city, including the famous Cathay Hotel on the Bund, now the Peace Hotel, once a hub for the global jet set. Sassoon also built our second stop on this tour, Grosvenor House, an unmistakably Deco-style apartment building whose silhouette echoes ancient ziggurats.
This is graceful, right? And the lines, we call them speed lines in Art Deco talk, they draw the eye upward, accentuating the height of the building, because these were some of the first steel-framed buildings built in China. So you could go up a lot higher than anything that had been built before. So everybody was fascinated with the highest. Art Deco was in part a reaction against the over-ornamented styles that preceded it, but it was also a celebration of the changes in people's lives that science and technology were bringing. So people were fascinated with speeds, automobiles, airplanes, railroads. And it was also a time when people were moving to the cities from the countryside, a time of urbanization. So celebration of the city and all that city life meant.
At Grosvenor House, with no need for load-bearing walls, brickwork was arranged in zigzag patterns. But as Patrick points out, the design stayed refreshingly simple, with the form of the structure creating the visual interest, not ornamentation. It's a world away from the neoclassical French club just across the street, and the two were built only 2 years apart. Things were happening fast in the 20s. In Shanghai, Art Deco has never truly been consigned to history. Here, newer buildings still nod to their Art Deco predecessors.
This is a category that we have given a name to. We call new buildings that are inspired by Art Deco design, we call them Deco Echo. The city is filled with that. Why? Well, our theory is because Shanghai people, having grown up surrounded by Art Deco design from the old days, associate that style with the city. And so when architects today design new high-rises, in many cases they'll look to Nouveau Deco.
A block away, we visit another Sassoon property, the Cathay Cinema, a textbook example of Deco architecture. It boasts strong vertical lines and tall, narrow windows stretching from the marquee to the roofline, which is also tiered and stepped massing.
And cinemas, of course, were a great fertile field for Art Deco. People go to the movies to escape their real lives and go into some fantasy world. And so many times architects were told, this is going to be a theater. We want people to think of fantastic things, to think outside of the box. So many of the theaters were designed in Art Deco style, including the Cathay.
Our final stop brings us to the Astrid Apartments, an example of how Art Deco adopted subtle Chinese influences even in the 30s. Once mostly occupied by expats, the building even featured a service annex at the back. Today, it's home to local residents, and traditional red papers with Chinese calligraphy on their apartment doors offer a striking contrast to the building's modern lines. The Astrid pays homage to its elegance with vintage photographs lining its foyer.
Most of the exterior is very simple. We've got a central element, vertical, drawing your eye upward, and then an element at the top which has the flagpole. Flagpoles were a big thing back then.
Oh, really?
It's just like a bas-relief that has kind of a landscape. And actually this element in Chinese Art Deco buildings, in many cases, is the Chinese part, because they tend to be these landscapes that include mountain and water. This is what the Chinese traditional painting was called a shan shui painting, the mountains and waters. So let's look outside. The other thing that this cartouche has is sunburst, which is, of course, a motif that you see over and over again in Art Deco architecture and design.
As fate would have it, the glittering days were not to last. With Mao Zedong's declaration of the People's Republic of China in 1949, plain living became the norm, and single-family units in Art Deco buildings were subdivided into multiple apartments to receive an ever-growing population. Since then, many examples of the style were lost, cleared away for high-rises and larger residential complexes. Today, the city's Art Deco landscape is a patchwork. Some buildings remain overcrowded and cluttered with makeshift alterations, while others have been beautifully restored. This mix of survival and revival is what makes the Deco landscape in Shanghai so fascinating. Each detail traces a complex history and reflects the sweeping changes that have shaped the city over the past 100 years. For Monocle, I'm Tomás Pinheiro.
My thanks to Thomas Pinheiro and to Patrick Cranley of Art Deco Shanghai. And that's all for today's show. For more design stories, listen to our 5-minute midweek bonus show, Monocle on Design Extra, which airs on Thursdays. And if you enjoy print, then do pick up a copy of Monocle magazine as well. It's on all good newsstands now. Today's episode was produced and edited by Maylee Evans. I'm Nick Manise. Thanks for listening.